I'm an architect with Gensler. We also have Erin Cubison on the phone. She leads our consulting practice area, and we will get into a little bit more of what that is shortly. For those of you who don't know, Gensler is an architecture and design firm, and we cover kind of all facets of the design and architecture process, including ground up buildings, TIs, as well as digital experience design and consulting. And so we'll get into a little bit more of that later. But I do want to play up with COVID and return to work strategies. You know, this is a very prominent conversation going on in the design and real estate community right now. And Gensler always promotes that we are a local company. We always focus on our local offices, our local relationships, having boots on the ground, and really entrenching ourselves in communities. But for this is a global problem, and we are a global office. And for this, that's really important because in areas like Asia, they are a little bit ahead in terms of where they are in response to the pandemic. And so we're able to leverage our global resources and pull strategies that we already know are working and bring them over here to the US and then inform Europe as well. So it's pretty cool that we are able to leverage global resources in response to this pandemic and getting people back into the office safely. And
the one other thing, Brett, that
yeah.
I would add to that is also the typical caveat that we have to say is that we're not health or virus experts, and that the strategies that we're going to share are what we've been exploring with clients and that we're seeing some traction, but that these are really early days. So anybody that's actually saying anything is a best practice might be exaggerating a little bit, because there are no practices to be best yet. And so we're always going to want to take our cues from the health organizations, the CDC, the World Health Organization, et cetera, so that, you know, we know that we're doing the things that the doctors and scientists are actually kind of verifying.
Yeah, we have people who are dedicated to staying on top of this trend and staying on top of the latest health guidelines from different organizations and making sure our deck and what we are promoting is up to date, so that we can promote a healthy return to the workplace. And so with that said, real test of Zoom here to see if we can change pages. So we are pooling information from our clients. Erin touched on it a little bit, but we pooled information once COVID happened and asked our clients, what are the most pressing topics? What are you concerned with on how to get people either working from home? How do you get them back into the office in the future? And so, you know, just a few highlights: health and wellness is a critical priority in the workplace. We've seen it as a growing trend over the past couple of years, but now as people are shifting back to returning to the workplace, the pandemic has hit, health and wellness is a priority, and it needs to be a visible and encouraged priority. And then the recognition that the home is not an office, and Erin is going to show some great research as to what that really means and how we back that statement up. And then virtual is not real. We are all getting to that breaking point of these Zoom calls and GoTo meetings and Skype, but that person-to-person interaction, that meeting in real life, it does hold a lot of value. And so we engaged over 67,000 of our clients worldwide. So we have a huge pool of research to back up the strategies we're going to share with you today. And with that, our big tool to do that is our work from home survey, which Erin is our specialist who brought this survey to life, and I'm going to let her take it from here.
Well, it was a whole team, certainly, but and I think it's an important thing to note that our approach in general to design is to be informed by data, you know, to be really driven by research and to invest the time. And so this is work that Gensler essentially self-funded through our Gensler Research Institute, which is an entity within Gensler that is dedicated purely to exploring those questions that are really, really important, that will help make our work better and help our clients' lives and companies ultimately be better. So this was a massive effort that was conducted early in the pandemic. And so the one caveat that I would give on this is that it's kind of like a snapshot in time from around May. And we're actually right now in the process of doing another round to get another check on the pulse of the US on the work from home experience. So let's go on to the next slide. And this is called a panel survey. For those of you in the research biz, it's really important to recognize when you're hearing potentially some findings that come out from different companies or organizations. There's a real difference between a convenience survey where folks might be reporting on findings from just their pool of contacts that they asked some questions to versus a rigorous process. And so this is research that comes from a panel of respondents that represent all the different slices of the professional world that you see on the screen. And so it's very well informed across industries, across tenure or level within an organization, as well as stage in life of respondents. So keep going, next page. And so in general, what we're going to look at is really what are the lessons that we can learn from this experience of working from home, and how is that going to help us think about this opportunity? It's an unbelievable opportunity that we're in right now. I know it's terrible and it's painful and everyone would rather it not be happening, but it is at the same time a very interesting moment that is going to change our workplaces forever. Next. So one of our key findings is that when asked after this is over, are you interested in coming back to work and or continuing to work from home or coming back to work full time, et cetera, you know, about how many days, what's the frequency that you'd be interested in? And what was really interesting to see was that it was a spectrum. We did have a good chunk of people that said, oh, no days at home, I am coming back, get me back into that office. But it was less than half of the population. And so if we look at the rest, especially the middle chunk of 1 or 2 days at home, 3 or 4 days at home, those are folks that I think are going to be very interesting to plan for. And when you think about a hybrid work style or a hybrid officing style, where 40, again, it's similar, just coincidence, it's also 44%. That want to be being remote 1 to 4 days a week. And then we have a decent chunk here of 12% that say, you know what, actually, I'm pretty effective at home. This is working out. I think I could be remote full time. And so it'll be very interesting. And what we're doing, this actually is something that we're doing with clients all the time now, of helping individual organizations run this survey on their own employee populations to help inform what they should be planning for when they come back. And so for us folks who are in the biz of, you know, designing and getting space, and it was a relief to see that people do want to come back, that the offices are not going away, thank goodness, but they will change. They'll change in the amount of space that companies take and how they will use it. Next slide. So why do people want to come back? As I hinted at a second ago, the nature of the office is very likely to change. It's probably not going to be a sea of desks for solo heads down work, because if we buy that, you know, all these people are saying, yeah, there's going to be some remote practice in my future, the reason that they're coming back into the office are really these top 4 things, and it's all about the people. It's all about spending time with others, whether it's in a scheduled or an impromptu meeting with their colleagues, or socializing, or just this general feeling of being part of the community. And so if you think about it, what are the kinds of spaces that support those activities? It's not necessarily individual desks. I mean, of course, we'll still need those for getting some work done that is individual. But I think what we're exploring at Gensler through different ideation and through a lot of different work with clients is really emphasizing the spaces where people come together. Next slide. And so we kind of asked this in a couple different ways within the survey, just to make sure that we were understanding kind of the whole whole aspect of the topic. And so when asked in another way, 74% of people say that it's the people that they miss the most. 55% say that collaboration is harder at home. And just over half say that it's hard to stay up to date with what others are working on when you're working from home. So it's just kind of more indicators pointing to the importance of the office itself. Next slide. So it was interesting to see how the data shook out based on what stage in life people were at. And so I think there's a couple of factors that are affecting this. The way to read the slide is the darker blue, the younger the individual, or the younger the response pool. And so Gen Zs and millennials were reporting a harder time not feeling like they've made a difference as much as the older crowd, not feeling like they've completed the work they need to do, not knowing what's expected of them as well, and also saying working from home is more stressful, I'm getting less done than in the office. But we should step back and think about the why, because a lot of us probably had a kind of maybe an idea going into this that, oh, the young crowd is going to be super smooth at picking up technology and they're used to communicating this way. And there's probably truth to that, because that's, we've seen that through communication. But what is also true is younger generations are less likely to have big homes because they're earlier in their career. They are way more likely to have roommates. They are way more likely to be relying on others at work to provide mentorship and guidance. And it happens that millennials I think depending on how you slice it, basically are the most likely generation to have small children. And so so a lot of this could be compounded by, the additional life demands that are being placed on everyone right now. Next slide. Similarly, just to also ask in a related question around avoiding distractions and maintaining work-life balance, the data again showed that the generational breakdown was very similar, that the younger the respondent, the harder it was to avoid distractions and maintain work-life balance. Next. And then the last slide that we're going to share on this, and then we'll kind of transition into the way that this could play out in office space. We wanted to ask, okay, what are the specific things that would help you feel comfortable in returning back to the office? And again, I want to emphasize, this is a snapshot in time from the summer of 2020, but we're learning almost weekly, science, we're hearing reports from different individuals that are saying that this is more effective or that, or we're getting news around different data on the topic. And so I think it'll be important to recognize that these things will change, but at least for right now, really strong support of stricter policies against coming in sick. And the other side of the coin is increased opportunities to work from home. And interesting to note, before COVID, only 11% of employees worked from home regularly, and less than a third really felt like they had a choice to even do so. And then, so after that, increased office cleaning, increasing distance between workstations, hand sanitizer, some touchless features, you can kind of see these different strategies drop off in the level of support that they receive from the different survey respondents. And so I think an interesting takeaway from this is which ones of these are kind of like a no regrets strategy, meaning it could be good practice, it's going to probably pandemic or no pandemic, it provides us benefit. Things like cleaning and leveraging travel rather than face-to-face meetings when we can, increasing opportunities to work from home for the sheer benefit of the work-life balance that it can provide. A lot of these things I think will be no regret strategies, whereas others related to an air purification or touchless stuff. I mean, some things are very pricey, of course, and require major infrastructural change, and so they'll need to probably have a lot more research before someone were to move forward with them. And we can go on to the next slide. And so what we're really using all of this data to inform how we start to think about the new paradigm of the workplace. And as a side note, we're in the process of actually updating this survey right now. And so we'll also share share out and make available any updates to it as we go forward into the fall. So next slide, and we'll take a look at the different strategies we're gonna be looking at today. So the way we've been thinking about this with clients is kind of in 3 shifts or 3 timelines. The immediate term, where we're truly just focusing on health, and for the companies that have the urgent need to get back in, many of them have brought some critical staff back in, and essential workers, of course. It's really just the immediate term, like how do we do screening and monitoring and basic cleaning and hygiene and physical distancing. Those kind of strategies are super important to get right, got to get done fast. And so we'll look at some considerations for those. If we look a little bit longer out, where most of our clients we're hearing are thinking of it in kind of a phased re-entry. And I would say early 2021 is what a lot of them are talking about. I mean, that could easily get pushed back. We have some that are already saying, no, you know, we're not coming back any earlier than spring or summer of 2021. But that's still relatively near term. And so that in this category of kind of leading their employees through this change and this middle piece of what are the new space typologies that might need to be provided, that very well might be furniture based or relatively easy changes to the office that can be tested and experimented with. We have a lot of clients that are looking at modifying their general standards and guidelines. And then from the building side, the idea of access and vertical transportation and infrastructure, there are many considerations that are important enough to be bumped up to this kind of midterm. But if we think we move into the 3rd category here of the reimagined workplace, this is a little bit longer out, where we have the ability to plan ahead. We have the ability to see how this grand remote work experiment kind of plays out. What we're really looking at with our forward-thinking clients is, what is the new enhanced experience of the workplace? What is the true purpose that it's going to provide to people for interaction? How does it become a tremendous support for health and wellness, and not a risky place, not the place that I just have to go to, but could it be actually a place that provides that health and wellness benefit? And then also the more on the infrastructure and deeper investment on the technology side, touchless and smart features, how technology can be completely integrated into our buildings, not only because it provides this it alleviates this germ issue, but because it can also be an amazingly dynamic way of using our building as a tool. So maybe Brett, you can take us into these, and then I can chime in as we go through.
Thank you, Erin. So what we've done, as you can see, we started with the data of the survey, and then we broke it down into these key aspects, both immediate, near future, and kind of looking long term. And we developed these 16 kind of icons on how we can change our buildings and our tenant spaces. And so we meant these to be really digestible and implementable, because if they're not, and they're really pie in the sky and vague, they're going to be harder to adopt. And we also wanted to make sure that it's not just owners or buildings that are getting addressed, but tenant spaces as well. Because really, if you secure a tenant space but don't secure your building, you've got a break in your health there, or the vice versa is true. If you're really focusing on promoting a healthy building, but the tenants and the suites aren't implementing those changes as well, you've got another kind of break in that overall workplace health and wellness. And so what we are doing is we're kind of offering suggestions for both owners and tenants. We want kind of one cohesive strategy that people can implement to get us back to work and get us back in the office. And so we're going to walk through these and make notes. We'll answer questions at the end. Some of these kind of garner more questions and debate than others, but I'll walk you through it, and then we can talk about it. Froze on me. There we go. Okay, so building access, let's see if I can get back here. I swear this happens every time right at this point in the presentation. So thank you for bearing with me. Let's see if we can get back right to where we were. There we go. Okay, building access, entrance, and queuing. So what we're seeing is a lot of buildings, especially the larger ones, have multiple points of entry and exit. And so what we're recommending is actually consolidating those entrances down to kind of one designated entrance for the building. We don't want to block off exits because that's a life safety issue. So we want to make sure our exits are still maintained, but really identifying kind of one key point of entry. And what that does is it creates a system where when you enter the building, that leads right into item number 2, which is building lobby, screening, check-in. You may have started seeing some buildings already implementing kind of a health screening check, whether it be temperature, or some people are doing like questionnaires when you sign in. And that way they have a good idea, okay, this person has admitted to doing this, or this person's temperature was taken. And it's just a method of kind of control and making sure people are healthy and safe when coming into the building.
And including, you know, the instantaneous testing as it becomes more available, I'm sure.
Right. Right, and then this is kind of a offshoot on this. We also have this area highlighted. We want to kind of consolidate and limit general lobby seating. You know, shared seating points, we really want to limit touch points generally speaking. So either limit them to kind of single seats or even remove them altogether, just to, again, reduce the amount of touch points that are in a shared space. So we go from a single point of entry to a health screening at the lobby or the security desk. And that leads right into a place where most people consolidate, which is building circulation right at the elevator lobby. And so we're recommending simple things like floor decals indicating, okay, you stand here, create space, make sure 6 foot or whatever social distance number that the building wants to implement is being allowed for. And we're also going to start seeing, we're already seeing it as a general industry trend, but I think it's going to tick up more, the use of destination dispatch and really efficient elevator schemes so people can get into the building, up through the building safely and efficiently to reduce the crowds waiting for elevators. And then also leveraging fire stairs in lieu of elevators, especially for the lower floors. You know, floors say 1 through 4, you know, let's reduce elevator traffic. Let's promote the use of stairs. That also factors into a wellness play. And they can just go down the stairs, exit right through one of the many exit doors, and they're out of the building. Again, reducing points of interaction and reducing community touch points. See if I'm lucky. All right, it worked. Okay, here's a big one. Building restroom space. We're recommending right now is actually alternating stalls. Again, restrooms are one of those spots where you can really consolidate a lot of people. And so we want to recommend maybe putting an occupancy max sign on the restroom that's half of what it's actually able to fit, recommending every other sink and every other stall. And you know, you can basically simply lock off every other stall. And we're also seeing, in terms of new spaces and new construction, we're actually seeing a trend towards single occupant restrooms. We actually have a lot of clients now, instead of going for this high density restroom count, they're actually promoting a bunch of single stalls. And that way people have a private bathroom, less shared space. It gives a greater sense of security. And so that's another shift we might be seeing in core and shell construction is this idea of single stall restrooms versus big community restrooms.
And it also has that synergy with, you know, the desire to have more gender neutral restrooms as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a big inclusion policy that comes with that. Mm-hmm. And then this is a big one Erin talked about. It could be a lot more costly for buildings, depending on the system they have. Newer buildings are going to be able to leverage this a lot better than kind of older buildings or Class B or C office space. But building systems like filtration and ventilation, increasing your fresh air intake. A lot of HVAC systems for modern office buildings, this is simply a tuning issue. You bring in your engineer, they kind of recalibrate your system. Looking at advanced air filtration and increase the frequency of air flushing, in which the air is actually just flushed through the system and purified. And so we really want to encourage people leveraging their kind of MEP consultants to how can we tune our air to the best of our ability to get fresh air circulating through the space. You may have heard of sick building syndrome. That's been a conversation since what, the 70s, 80s. And, with the pandemic, that conversation's no different. And it's even, more critical. So I suggest talk with your MEP consultants, get your owners, your tenants, have that conversation going and see what you can do. And then number 7, moving into wayfinding, signage, graphics. This is a really low key base element that buildings and tenants alike can implement. Just having your rules for the building, wayfinding, social distancing squares, simple things spread throughout the building. So as soon as you enter the building, okay, I know these are the rules of the building. These are the social distancing elements. I know exactly where to go and how to interact with certain elements to promote health and safety, especially in a pre-vaccine world.
I think something to note on the wayfinding and signage one that we've all probably seen as we've been out and about these days is that you have everything from like maybe your local taqueria that's putting some tape on the floor to, the other businesses that are getting kind of the standard health, like bright red, screams COVID right at you kind of signage, to the more elevated kind of direction that we're trying to kind of bring to the table for our clients is thinking about, okay, if this stuff is going to be in our life, if these visuals are going to be part of our building experience, they could really be branded. They could really actually be attractive, thoughtful, feel like they're part of the building, feel like they're not screaming at us or telling us to be worried and freaked out and do this and do that. Like they could actually be a very elegant guide through the building. And so I think with many of our clients that are really forward thinking and they're willing to invest a little bit now, they're getting an outcome that is a much, much better experience of their building or of their space.
And that's a wonderful point, Erin, because I think it also ties into perception. This, unlike previous market shifts or crashes where it's economic, this one is health. And so perception is going to be everything. Perception and actually implementing these systems. So having something that's designed well and actually integrated into the building rather than either a handwritten sign duct taped to your front door, it is going to make people think that this building or this company is taking things seriously and I know exactly where I stand and what I need to do right out of the gate. That's going to make people feel more comfortable inherently. And that's a good transition right to number 8, which is increased cleaning protocols across the board, using signage to encourage people to clean equipment after they use it, door handles and surfaces, general touch points be cleaned on a regular basis. And what we're seeing some of our tenants, especially in biotech, is they're implementing much stricter cleaning problems, not only day to day, but then doing weekly, like deep dive cleanings, things you wouldn't normally do on a weekly basis, maybe monthly, maybe yearly. We're now seeing that as an increased kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Frequency.
Frequency, yeah. Yeah, we're seeing it with increased frequency. And so that's definitely something that you as agents want to promote with your buildings or tenant reps or anything is these cleaning protocols are really going to be critical going forward. Come on, load. There we go. Okay, and now we're actually going to switch it over to the tenant side, where some of the strategies are a little bit similar, but it has its own component and uniqueness because it's actually in the office space. So once you've made it through kind of the shared building lobby, the shared vertical transportation, maybe even stopped off at the restroom if it's not in suite, we now get to kind of this visitor entrance. And what we're seeing, and this is a little bit easier for full floor tenants, is a dedicated employee versus visitor entrance, and kind of identifying two zones right out of the gate. So again, we're creating a safe employee area and a safe visitor area, and a designated place where each of those people can either do an additional health screening if the building downstairs is not enough or doesn't have it. This creates a separation between public and private, so to speak. And then that again ties into our workplace lobby, a queuing and check-in. Similar to downstairs, we want to make sure we know, generally speaking, who's in your space, have they done the health screening, and again, providing floor graphics and decals to let them know, okay, where should I stand? How should I behave myself, so to speak, in this building? And then workplace circulation. How do we get around the office space? One thing that, and we're actually figuring this out with our own office, our Oakland office right now, is how do we circulate around the building? And we have this idea of kind of dedicated swim lanes. So we want to reduce the amount of times that people are necessarily crossing paths in a narrow 5-foot or even 6-foot circulation path. So again, it's a little bit easier for full floor tenants where you kind of generally have a big circulation core where you can do a dedicated path all the way around the space. But even if you're not, you can see in the little diagram here, even using, say, collaboration tables or reception tables or anything to kind of break up circulation zones so that people aren't necessarily bumping shoulders as they walk past each other. And number 12, we touched on earlier, really starting to leverage our fire stairs. We're going to see this again more for lower floors generally. You know, walking up or down 20 flights of stairs in a high rise could be a little tough on the knees, but for lower tenants, it's certainly a viable strategy.
Or for multi-floor tenants, I think that's going to be an interesting conversation where they can start to connect among their own floors using the fire stairs. And of course, it kind of begs the question of, well, what about badging in and badging out? Can we prop the doors open? Probably not. And so we're hearing, you know, a lot of creative solutions, some involving, a lot of them involving technology around face recognition and automatic door openers, or even just saying, yes, we are gonna badge in and we're gonna provide that hand sanitizer, you know, right on the other side of that door. But thinking of the multi-floor tenants really using those fire stairs, and then in the extension of when the fire stairs become a regular part of your day and no longer a kind of forgotten gray dusty column that goes through the building, we're actually seeing a lot of tenants do some creative paint treatment and wall coverings and lighting, and trying to brand it or make it, you know, a space that is paid attention to.
And now we're getting into some of the nuts and bolts that usually a lot of the hot questions come out of, and that's dealing with furniture, offices, collaboration space. So general number 13, you know, right now, especially in early companies that are just looking to come back, we're not promoting wholesaling out all your furniture. You know, that's an expensive thing, but we are recommending as people start phasing back into the office, we don't see a trend where people are going to be like, open your doors, 100% occupancy right out of the gate. But phasing their way back into the workplace and really promoting kind of 6-foot circles and 6-foot spacing. So you can see in the diagram here, we've got every other workstation, you know, limiting face-to-face seating and contact, and really promoting, you know, general spacing throughout the open office. And we can see this going to start to inform larger scale, you know, in San Francisco, LA, a lot of the major metropolitan areas with these tech campuses where it's how many bodies can we fit in the space? How many desks can we cram in? We're actually going to start seeing kind of a step back from that. And we already have, and a de-densification of the workplace.
And I'll add
And
a note here. We
yeah,
actually, Gensler created a tool for this purpose called Rerun, where
yes.
we can actually bring in a floor plan and automate. And what I want to clarify, actually, Brett, rather than say it's not that Gensler recommends the 6 feet, we're really open to whatever distance a company really wants to pursue. And many we're actually seeing are thinking of 8, 9 feet to allow, because we know that humans don't stay perfectly still at their
Nope.
desk.
Side to side.
Yeah, but anyway, by using a really cool tool that we've built, we can actually automate the process of looking at what's the optimized layout of what desks can be used using any diameter, with a click of a button, and see what's the maximum capacity that can be achieved on a floor.
Yeah, Rerun is a really cool tool for almost instantly analyzing floor plates, especially larger scale floor plates where it's really hard to kind of crunch numbers. We can automate all of that.
Or like big tenants that have, hundreds of thousands of square feet. It's a very effective way to do it.
Yeah. And again, back to this furniture discussion, this is generally really a hot topic. And, there's a lot of strategies for adapting current furniture because again, this is a moment in time. We don't want to do overcorrection, but we do want to kind of smartly evolve from where we are. And so there's a lot of furniture adaptation that can happen right now. A lot of companies are doing kind of clip-ons to your desk to easy clip-on panels that can either go away or be taken off and scrubbed down. So there's a lot of interesting systems coming to the market right now, both for desk and collaboration space to allow division and easy cleaning. And that transfers right into kind of offices and conference rooms. And what might sound counterintuitive, we're actually kind of promoting this idea of keeping doors open. And the reason for that is increasing airflow and circulation, not just in the open office, but into kind of all parts of the office and limiting the recycling of air. So keeping airflow open and continuous throughout the space at all times. And then limiting occupancies per room size, bringing the 6-foot circle minimum or kind of whatever building standard the company wants to adopt and seeing how that changes the shapes of these rooms. Some of our studies have actually found that people don't need the large meeting spaces or necessarily want it. They're comfortable doing maybe a meeting from their desk and then being able to do supplemental work at the same time. So I think we might see a trend on kind of the shift away from maybe these large conference rooms and focus more on huddle rooms and more touchdown spaces. And
also, one quick
yeah.
note to add to that in terms of the midterm and long-term view of what will change in our workspace. I think also thinking of the new reality of having a lot more people working remotely, the chances that you have a remote participant in your meeting are probably close to 100%, depending on the meeting size. And so knowing that there's going to be this much greater participation through something like Zoom or WebEx or Teams, that even if and when you do have people in those conference rooms, they're going to be interacting with people through a screen. And so we're probably going to see a lot more investment in the tech in conference rooms, cameras that are much better. I think a lot of us have been in rooms where the camera's never placed right and you can never actually see anybody. And the folks that are dialing in kind of feel screwed because they can't really get their voice heard. And so I think we're going to see a lot more attention paid to that blended reality, that kind of either AR, VR, we might start to see holograms and, really long-term thinking, but like how technology is going to be very embedded in our experience so that we can get a seamless integration of people no matter where they're working.
And use agents and real estate professionals and all, you can take this information and with your clients begin to have very real discussions about the space they need and how they move forward. Because all of a sudden, if you can solve a 15-person meeting with a 5-person huddle and the rest is through tech, that is a large footprint you no longer need to accommodate for, or can be used for a totally new type of program, something else. And then private offices, I do get this question a lot. Oh, is the private office coming back, or do we need to build out all private offices? And again, it's important to remember this is a moment in time, and offices do represent a sizable infrastructure and square foot investment. And so while they do have their purpose, they do create separation, I don't confidently see a kind of big bolster back to the private office taking control of the floor plan. Erin, would you agree with me on that? We're not really seeing that in any of our companies that we're talking to. Okay, and moving on to collaborative and food spaces. Food space is a big one. And this breaks down from either large tech campus, eateries and eating halls down to just your general regular office break room. And so like right now is an immediate kind of shift and adaptation strategy, just limiting the seating that would require people to sit directly face to face or shoulder to shoulder, and designating with signage and decals physical distancing guidelines in the pantry and kitchen, limiting, say, okay, hey, only one person or two people at the bar at any time, one person at the sink at any time, one person getting coffee. For some of our larger kind of grab and go cafes or larger invested spaces, we're starting to see trends towards dedicated employees or dedicated vendors who are solely responsible for managing food and drinks. So that way you no longer have 100 people touching the coffee machine in the morning. It's one person who serves out coffee to everybody. And generally limiting shared foods, anything that's kind of a collective treatment that's become really popular in the past few years. For now, we're saying we recommend dialing that back a bit. You don't want everybody putting their hand in the cereal jar or in the cookie jar, and that's just not a good health strategy right now. And then again, we've seen this trend past couple of years as health and wellness is starting to take more and more of a priority, but even now outdoor areas, reconfiguring them to support physical distancing, limiting seats, but really providing outdoor areas where people can have a place to get fresh air, have peace of mind. Again, we really want to promote the perception of health and wellness and that people have an opportunity to get that fresh air even in this intense COVID environment.
I think the other thing about the outdoor areas, the three ways that I've seen them really leveraged is maybe starting at the smallest scale. So if you think about the workplace and how in demand seats are going to be and rooms are going to be, and also I bet everyone on this call has had an increase in scheduled meetings on their calendar because we can't rely on running into people anymore. So what we're seeing is that if we forecast that into the workplace, we're going to have a huge demand on all of the focus rooms, huddle rooms, and probably any size conference room. So I think the availability of any kind of drop-in phone room is going to be really tough to maintain. And so I think the outdoor space is going to probably be the release valve for taking a private phone call. Of course, depending on how easy it is for you to get outdoors. If you're on the 15th floor, maybe not. Maybe you're just going to stand in the hallway. But even that's going to be a little bit difficult because of the circulation patterns that Brett was describing. And so I think we're going to see people go outdoors for a lot of their private phone calls that they would have used a phone room for. Also with gyms being pretty much closed, not desirable. We're probably, we've all seen it out in our, the local park of the school that you might live near. You see like these boot camps emerge. I think we're going to see a lot of outdoor space around offices take on the fitness venue. And then the last is also, I think, for the larger team meetings. Something that's interesting is we've done studies for a lot of our clients around what's the capacity of the office in general, including meeting rooms. If you look at a large conference room, because of the, the 6 foot or whatever diameter bubbles that we end up drawing, the capacity of a large conference room is down to like 4, 6, maybe 8 people. And so it ends up turning into something that's really not very useful. And so it could be that maybe some outdoor plaza space could become a large team space when you do need to get a large team together. I know with COVID, we're probably going to see limits of like no more than 12 or no more than 20. But even that number is going to probably be hard to accommodate in the office. And so outdoor spaces might be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think, so we just walked through kind of quickly. So again, if you have any questions, we'll address them. But what we're trying to promote here is looking at buildings holistically, looking at kind of owners and tenants working together to create kind of a health strategy that allows people to kind of return to the office, allows people to circulate around and really take advantage of different types of space, despite being in kind of this pre-vaccine era that we're in right now, and that it's a moment in time, right? So as we move to a post-vaccine, making sure that the strategies we implement now allow us to kind of evolve in the future once we're post-vaccine, and how we address offices, and really maintaining a focus, health and wellness, collaboration. We're seeing huge advances in collaborative technologies and furniture and needs, and this de-densification of the workplace. And again, a holistic strategy of how people move through space is going to be critical going forward.
So we just wanted to wrap up. There's a lot to think about, and so we wanted to show an example of kind of how we've proactively worked with clients. These are just examples of some of the things that we've been doing at Gensler, whether it's the short term within the immediate actions of like, all right, how do we just take care of business in terms of making sure the building's ready, or assessing circulation, getting an action plan together for tenants or buildings, assessing their mobile work readiness. So like doing that working from home survey is something that we've done with a ton of different organizations. All the way through to like the midterm and longer term, you can see kind of how some different action steps could break into the assessment phase and then the implementation phase, because by definition they are further out in time. We have more time to work with, and so they generally fall into the idea of let's really understand the conditions first before making a decision. And so, doing an assessment of a portfolio, or a thorough look at what is the supply and demand needed for a given space, how much space is really needed, and then potentially redesigning that space. And longer term, really thinking about the experience of employees. I think that's really going to be the differentiator for attracting and retaining talent, for understanding where is innovation coming from within different organizations. I think it's always going to be about what is the employee experience in a new kind of hybrid work environment. And so how does the digital experience play into that? How does technology become a tool that enables that? And how is it supported by everything in the workplace, ranging from the physical to the signage to the messaging and the communications that the company is supporting? And so we just wanted to kind of put this as like a sampler of even though there's a lot to do and it can be overwhelming, it's possible to attack it in manageable pieces. You can go on to the next slide, Brett. And we wanted to leave you with just some resources also for reference. At Gensler, it's, for us, we're 5,000, 6,000 people around the globe, and so when COVID hit, we all really mobilized, and it was a pretty amazing, and it continues to be a pretty amazing thing to mobilize everyone toward creativity, toward thinking of new ideas, new potential solutions, and sharing them. And so if you're interested, feel free to go to gensler.com/COVID-19. There's a whole bunch of really interesting thought pieces on on where our built environment might go. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. So we do have a little bit of time. We ran a little long, but we really wanted to make sure we shared this data with you. We really think it's important to help us move forward. But let's open it up for some questions. I'm gonna stop sharing my deck and we can all kind of be bigger faces. Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, don't be shy.
We can also give folks a
Yeah.
couple minutes back to get ready for your 2 o'clock meetings.
Yeah, that works well. Well, again, thank you all so much for the opportunity. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. We're going to share our contact information so Stephanie can distribute that for us. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Doesn't matter how big or small they might be, whether it's a small tenant, big tenant, or just general strategies. We're here to help you through this time. So let us know. And we're happy to get the discussion started. And one thing that's great, as Aaron said, we're 5,000 to 6,000 people strong. So if Aaron and I don't have the answer, we'll certainly be able to find the expert for you. So again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.